Unit 9. Rescued. Lesson objectives. To understand simple newspaper reports. To understand and use third conditional. To write a simple newspaper report. Language. If it hadn't rained, we wouldn't have had anything to drink. We wouldn't have gone if we had known about the bad weather. Key vocabulary. Set off. To begin a journey. Planned. To make detailed arrangements for something you want to do in the future. Signal. A movement or sound that you make to give somebody information, instructions, a warning, etc. Synonym sign. Batteries. A device that is placed inside a car engine, clock, radio, etc., and that produces the electricity that makes it work. Dramatic. Of a change, an event, etc., sudden, very great and often surprising. Protected. To make sure that somebody or something is not harmed, injured, damaged, etc. Raw. Not cooked. Emergency services. The public organizations that deal with emergencies, the police, fire, ambulance and Coast Guard services. Sunburn. The condition of having painful red skin, because you have spent too much time in the sun. Dehydration. The condition of having lost too much water from your body. Peak. The point when somebody or something is best, most successful, strongest, etc. Synonym height. Mist. A cloud of very small drops of water in the air just above the ground, that make it difficult to see. More words. Initially. At the beginning. At the beginning. The time when something starts, the first part of an event, a story, etc. Unfortunately. Used to say that a particular situation, or fact makes you sad, or disappointed, or gets you into a difficult position. Synonym regrettably. Eventually. At the end of a period of time, or a series of events. Luckily. By good luck. Synonym fortunately. At first sadly. In a sad way. Father and son rescued at sea. Last Friday morning, Australian man Ben Hammond and his teenage son Michael were rescued from their fishing boat in the Coral Sea. They had set off from Murray Island, off the northeast coast of Australia, 20 days earlier on a fishing trip. They had only planned to go for a few hours. Everything was great at first, said Mr. Hammond. The weather was fine and the fishing was good. But then there was a sudden wind. We lost control and were sent out to sea. The wind was the beginning of a massive storm. After a few days, their boat ran out of fuel. They couldn't call for help because their mobile phones had no signal, so they turned them off to save the batteries. Rescuers had difficulty finding them because of the storm. However, the storm may have saved their lives. It was lucky the weather was quite bad, said Michael. If it hadn't rained, we wouldn't have had anything to drink. We only had 2 bottles of water to begin with. Over the next few weeks, they just tried to stay alive and well. They protected themselves from the sun by covering their heads. They managed to catch some fish, which they ate raw. And they drank the rainwater. Eventually, they discovered they had a mobile phone signal. They sent text messages to their family. The emergency services found them and a rescue helicopter was sent to pick them up. They were taken to a clinic where they were treated for sunburn and dehydration. Mr. Hammond had lost over 20 kilograms. He said, "I'm just happy to be alive." Helicopter rescues men on mountain. 2 French men were airlifted by helicopter from Mount Snowdon in Wales yesterday evening. Luc Morel and Marc Dubois had set out in the morning when the weather had been good. They had reached the peak and were on their way back down. Unfortunately, at about 4 p.m., it had started to rain and then the mist had come in. It was difficult to see and Marc slipped and fell. "We wouldn't have gone if we had known about the bad weather," said Marc. "But we hadn't listened to the weather forecast." Luke used his mobile to phone the emergency services, and a dramatic rescue operation took place. "If they hadn't phoned so early, we wouldn't have found them," said one rescue worker. "If they had left it longer, it would have been dark." The rescue operation lasted for about 2 hours. Fortunately, Marc wasn't badly injured. They were both wet and tired, but they were well and happy to be back down.